Hello and welcome back to True Crime Hub. Today we'll be looking at the case of Rukhsana Naz, the 19-year-old who was killed for falling pregnant. Before we get started on today's case, I'd really appreciate if you could subscribe to my channel, as this really does help me out. So without any further delay, let's explore the case of Rukhsana Naz. Today's case takes place in Derby, England. The city, located in the East Midlands, is known for its advanced transport manufacturing. It's home to engine manufacturer Rolls-Royce and Bombardier Transportation, which has a facility at the Derby Litchurch Lane Works, while Toyota's UK headquarters is southwest of the city at Barneston. Rukhsana Naz was a British Pakistani girl born in 1978, living in Derby, England. Her mother, Shakila, was a seamstress and homemaker, and her father, Mohammed, was a social worker. Rukhsana came from a conservative Pakistani Muslim family, where gender roles are predefined and family honour is of the utmost importance. Rukhsana had an older brother named Shazad, as well as a younger brother named Iftikhar and a younger sister named Safina. Despite Rukhsana's traditional family life, she, like many young teenagers her age, was prone to falling head over heels for the boys in her school, and that's exactly what happened when Rukhsana was 12. She met her fellow classmate Imran Najib, also 12 at the time. Rukhsana and Imran were inseparable at school. They spent the next few formative years of their life enjoying each other's company, and by age 15 both had declared their love for one another. The problem, however, was that despite Imran being Pakistani and Muslim like Rukhsana, he was from a different caste, which meant that he was deemed as socially inferior, and therefore Rukhsana's family, in particular her mother, was against the relationship. In the spring of 1994, at age 15, Rukhsana was taken to Pakistan under the guise of visiting her grandfather. However, once she arrived, she was soon aware of the ulterior motive for bringing her to Pakistan. You see, Rukhsana's mother had realised that her daughter had fallen deeply in love with Imran, who, as mentioned, was seen as socially inferior, and in a community where honour is everything, she couldn't risk Rukhsana breaking away from the family and starting a life with Imran. It was for that reason that Rukhsana was forced to marry her second cousin in Pakistan. Despite the legal age of marriage being 16 for girls in Pakistan, Rukhsana was forcibly married to her cousin at just 15 years old. After some time had passed, Rukhsana returned back to Derby with her family. Her new husband stayed behind pending a visa application. The now pregnant Rukhsana must have felt utterly betrayed by her mother, but despite her situation, she and Imran carried out a secret affair. For Rukhsana and Imran, their relationship was one that went beyond social and cultural barriers. They had a love for one another that not even Rukhsana's own mother could deter. As the years went by, Rukhsana was forced to visit her husband in Pakistan and gave birth to 2 children. But her husband still remained in Pakistan, with his visa application still pending. They lived separate lives, but their marriage had stopped any hope of Rukhsana and Imran declaring their love publicly. As Rukhsana turned 19, she moved out of her family home and in with her younger sister Safina, a few doors down from her parents. However, she was still very close with her family. It was a tradition for the family to meet every week for a meal, and Rukhsana dutifully attended each week until March of 1998. It was here that Rukhsana's mother Shakila had discovered her daughter's affair with Imran when she learned that she was pregnant with his child. It had been over a year since Rukhsana had visited her husband in Pakistan, and when Rukhsana started to show the telltale signs of pregnancy, Shakila was able to connect the dots and make the connection. Shakila was incensed over the affair and subsequent pregnancy. She demanded that Rukhsana terminate the pregnancy. Shakila contacted a doctor to inquire about a termination. However, as Rukhsana was already 7 months pregnant, this wasn't an option. The doctor did, however, advise Shakila that there may be a doctor based in Birmingham who could help the situation. When Rukhsana refused, she kicked her in the stomach and urged her to take a large amount of paracetamol, something that would have almost definitely harmed or if not killed Rukhsana too. I think it's important to stop and analyse Shakila's mindset here. She has controlled her daughter's life so much so that she feels she can dictate the fate of her unborn child. Shakila felt that the honour and reputation of her family was beyond any rights that Rukhsana had as a person or a mother herself. I'm finding it hard to even comprehend the levels of narcissism and control here. Going back to the events that were unfolding, Shakila's attempt at getting Rukhsana to terminate the pregnancy was futile, and Rukhsana was finally standing up to her mother. She told her that she had planned to divorce her husband in Pakistan and start a new life with Imran and their new baby. Shakila, however, remained firm in her decision that the union would never happen. Not only was Imran from a lower caste, but he was also now married himself. Shakila had, in her mind, decided that by any means necessary she wouldn't allow Rukhsana to ruin the honour of her family. And so, under the guise of planning for her future, she convinced Rukhsana to make an appointment with her solicitor to finalise a will in which her property was left to her 2 children in equal shares, and their guardianship would be left with Shakila. By Thursday the 26th of March of 1998, the family's traditional weekly meal had come around, and under pressure from her mother, Rukhsana didn't attend. She had been convinced that her pregnancy needed to be kept a secret from the remaining family members until a solution had been found, and so Rukhsana agreed not to attend. At around 7 p.m, Shakila excused herself from the family meal. She announced that she needed to visit a family member in hospital and asked Iftikhar for a lift, and so Shakila, Iftikhar and Shazad all left the family home. They, however, were not going far, only a few doors down where Rukhsana lived. When the trio arrived at the property, they confronted Rukhsana about her pregnancy, giving her an ultimatum. They, in particular Shakila, told Rukhsana that if she didn't agree to see the doctor in Birmingham to terminate the pregnancy, then there would be dire consequences. Rukhsana, however, did not relent. She was firm in her decision to carry on her pregnancy and start a new beginning with the love of her life, Imran. When Rukhsana stood her ground, a verbal argument broke out between Rukhsana and Shakila, with Shazad interjection with some choice words for Rukhsana. Iftikhar, however, didn't get too involved. He had excused himself to use the bathroom upstairs. Downstairs, the situation was escalating. Rukhsana's unwavering bravery in standing up to her mother and brother had escalated into physical violence against her. A physical struggle broke out, and in it Shazad had overpowered Rukhsana and had begun to strangle her with a flex cord on Rukhsana's living room floor. As he did this, Rukhsana struggled to get free from his grasp. In the presence of her mother, she had perhaps thought that she may be saved, but instead of helping her daughter, Rukhsana Naz held her daughter's feet to the ground so that Shazad could get a better grip on the flex cord that was killing Rukhsana. Within a few minutes, Rukhsana had been killed. It was then that Iftikhar had emerged from the bathroom. As he walked downstairs, he described the scene. I could see him gritting his teeth, and there was no struggle from her. He had tears running down his face, and so did my mother. She was holding Rukhsana's legs and crying. I froze by the door. My mother turned to me and said, "Be strong, son." The room was silent for a few moments before Shakila broke the tension. She said if she had listened, it wouldn't have come to this desperate situation. Shakila had pinned Rukhsana's murder on her. There didn't seem to be an ounce of compassion for her daughter or her unborn grandchild. According to Iftikhar, he was then threatened with a flick knife by Shazad, telling him, "I've killed once, I don't mind killing another." He was forced to help dispose of the body and clean up the crime scene. Shakila returned to the family meal by around 8:15 p.m, while the brothers loaded Rukhsana's body into a bag and loaded it into the trunk of Shazad's car. That evening, they drove to the Denbigh Dales in West Yorkshire and dumped her body in a rural area. They then drove back to Denbigh and ditched her car before heading to a local snooker club to avoid suspicion and create an alibi. When Safina returned back to the house she shared with Rukhsana and didn't find her sister there, she grew worried and called her mother, wondering if she knew where Rukhsana was. Shakila, however, was not worried. She, according to Safina, told her to go to sleep and that perhaps Rukhsana would be back tomorrow. Safina grew increasingly worried as the days passed without any sign of Rukhsana, and so she filed a missing persons report with the local police. However, this was later withdrawn after her brother Iftikhar pressured her. He told her it would bring shame to the family if the community were to learn that Rukhsana had left. Around 2 weeks after the murder, on the 31st of March 1998, Rukhsana's body was discovered by a farmer. Once the discovery was made, the police discovered Imran's pager number written on the back of Rukhsana's hand. It was their secret method of communication. The police learned that Rukhsana's husband was in Pakistan and she was 7 months pregnant. Having not visited for some time, they took a closer look into Imran. He, however, was distraught at the news that the love of his life and his unborn child had been killed. Imran was able to provide a rock-solid alibi, and so the police probed him for information about who could have been responsible for Rukhsana's murder. It was then that the police were made aware of the rising tension in the Naz family and the difficulties that Shakila was having in accepting the pregnancy. When the police questioned the trio involved, they all gave different versions of events. Shakila gave 3 different accounts of what had happened that evening, none of which she admitted her part in the murder. In the first account, she said that she had left the family home after the meal and visited a friend's house. On the second account, she pinned the entire murder on Shazad and maintained that she had tried to stop it. In the third account, which came out during the trial, she insisted that Shazad had committed the murder and that she tried to revive Rukhsana by massaging her legs, perhaps an attempt to get ahead of Iftikhar's version of events. Iftikhar Naz also initially denied all knowledge of what had happened to Rukhsana. He initially used his girlfriend Louise as an alibi for the time of the murder. However, once the police were confident that Iftikhar and Louise couldn't have been together during the time of the murder, she was charged for perverting the course of justice. Upon interview, she revealed damning information. She asserted that not only was she not with Iftikhar at the time of the murder, but that he had confessed as to what he had done. Under duress of his older brother, he had helped to dispose of the body. Once Iftikhar was presented with the information relayed by Louise, he soon confessed to what he had witnessed. Shazad Naz was the last to be arrested and interviewed. This is because shortly after the murder, he left the country. Upon his return, the police were keen to speak to him. In his interview, he claimed that prior to visiting Rukhsana that day, he wasn't aware that she was pregnant and had been told by his mother shortly before entering the property. Initially, he claimed that he had placed a flex cord around Rukhsana to subdue her as she was lashing out at him, and it had gotten caught around her neck, and she had died as a result. He claimed that neither his brother nor his mother were involved in the murder. The police were able to gather a timeline of events from that evening and were led to believe that the murder had been planned by Shakila Naz all along. She had arranged for Rukhsana to write up a new will a week before her murder. She had brought along the bag that Rukhsana's body was placed in. She had purposefully led her sons towards Rukhsana, but not before revealing damning news of her secret pregnancy. She had purposefully led her sons towards Rukhsana, but not before revealing damning news of her secret pregnancy, knowing full well that family honour was as important to Shazad as it was to her. And finally, she had carried on her life after the fact as if nothing had happened. The trial of the 3 defendants lasted 2.5 weeks, after which the jury found Shazad and Shakila guilty of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. Iftikhar Naz was acquitted of all charges as the jury believed he acted in duress after being threatened by Shazad. The charges against Louise were later dropped and the prosecution used her as a key witness in the case. After the trial concluded, Imran spoke about what he had hoped the future would have looked like for him and Rukhsana. "We were in love and she wanted to live with me. She was expecting my baby and I was quite happy about that. We wanted to go away together, but we knew our relationship would be frowned upon in our community. We knew it would cause trouble." 13 years after the sentence was handed down, a prominent women's campaigner named Jasvinder Sangera was delivering a speech in the prison that Shakila was being held. Shakila, however, refused to attend, stating that she had no regrets over her actions, and she said, "I am here in the name of my honour." It is perhaps for that reason of her showing no remorse for her actions that she is still behind bars even though she was eligible for parole 11 years ago. Shazad has also since had a parole hearing that was denied and is still serving his sentence behind bars. When reviewing and covering cases that are centred around honour killings, it's important to reiterate important facts about these types of crimes. Honour-based violence is not limited to a particular religion, ethnic group, age group or even gender. There are numerous cases from the UK where the victim of an honour-based crime was not the stereotypical victim profile. The issue is not to do with a particular religion or ethnicity, it's about changing a mindset that has existed for far too long. Recent legislative changes have been made. For example, in June 2014, forced marriage was a criminal offence, punishable with up to 7 years in prison. In order to combat the issue as a whole, though, a collective effort from the community is required, from schools to police to healthcare staff to community leaders. Rukhsana's story is heartbreaking. Just when she thought her life would be changing forever, it was ripped away from her. Upon reflection, it's almost like a modern Romeo and Juliet story, because at the heart of this story is love, a love that so badly wanted to survive. Thank you as always for watching this video. I'd researched this case and found that it hadn't really been covered on YouTube, so I was really keen to do a video to highlight Rukhsana's case. I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe, and finally a comment on what case you'd like me to cover next. Stay safe.